Aligning on your budget is critical for us to do sooner than later. And, for a lot of our students who are in, I'd say for any parents who have juniors right now, it's a conversation that we've probably already had with your student or are about to have. If we haven't, do let me know. Um, or it's a conversation we're having with you. And specifically what this means is like, do we have a budget, right? Now, oftentimes families will come to us and say, hey, I'm only looking at Cal State. I'm only looking at public, universities in California, and here's why. That does happen quite a bit. Um, Now, oftentimes those parents, they say, I'm only looking at like publics in California because of a reason besides the budget, right? But sometimes they say it's because of the budget, in which case we say that's totally fine. But, and so our objective for this conversation is to kind of talk through that. But with all that in mind, we do want to make sure that we talk about the budget for college first, because we want to avoid any scenarios where a student gets into like their, so-called dream college, and then, we have to have a very difficult conversation about them not potentially going because it's beyond budget. So it's important for us to kind of set those expectations earlier, or even worse, we put the family in an awkward position where they have to do something that's like very financially painful, like, cash out the 401k, something that we would never suggest doing so that they would be able to kind of pay for their kids' college. So that's why we had this conversation earlier. Um, okay, so this, and I will send this actually, or I'll make this available on Notion so you can all access this. So the different types of aid. So now this is government, so this is federal and state. So on the left-hand side, it's the type of aid, and then on the right-hand side, it's the detail. So if we think about, I'll actually kind of talk about Pell Grants and Cal Grants because they're somewhat similar in that they're obviously both need-based, right? Um, and they are provided to undergraduates who demonstrate a particular need. Quite honestly, I don't think any one of our families is going to qualify for a Pell or for a Cal grant, just kind of given income levels. Um, so I think this is like perhaps like less of an option or less of a possibility. I think the more likelihood or like the higher likelihood options would be, federal work study. So this means it's a part-time job for students, but it's really going to be federal loans and federal plus. So the difference between these two is, so federal loans are at the student level. Okay. So these are the loans that the student takes out. Plus loans are loans that the parents take out. And then they're subsidized and unsubsidized. So subsidized means that the interest rate has been subsidized by the government. Not subsidized means it's like, I think it's like prime plus a specific kind of float rate. So that's the difference between federal plus and federal loans. The application required here is the FAFSA, and um, no one here actually has a student who has just applied. Um, so as you have your student getting ready for application season, I'd want to say like applications will be due, anytime between August and January, right? Make sure that if you are applying for the FAFSA, we would actually say just go ahead and apply anyways. You just never know, right? That's one. The second thing too is financial situations can change. Um, Not to get like kind of too morbid, but there could be like a death in the family, right? There could be like a divorce. There could be, loss of job. There could be like a lot of different things that happen. And so just having that FAFSA completed and submitted, um, one, uh, it's a lot easier for you to kind of make any sort of necessary changes once that student has been admitted and is enrolled to that college versus having to do it from the get-go. So regardless, we would say, apply and submit the FAFSA and do so at the start of the year following, or the start of the calendar year of that student's senior year. So they're a senior. Um, so let's say the seniors for like this admission cycle, they've now entered their second semester. So our guidance for them was to have submitted their FAFSA as early as January. Okay. Other thing too is for the FAFSA, they take into consideration the prior year. So what this means is if you are, so let's just take a look at like FAFSA again. So people are submitting in 2025. They will need to provide income for 2023, not 2024. So that's the other thing too. So required application FAFSA. So like these are, I'd say, like the major types of aid that you'll get from the government, but primarily it's federal or federal plus. Okay. Next one is institutional. So institutional is, I'd say, provided by the college. So there are two types. One is merit, the other is need-based. So merit is effectively a discount against the tuition based on academic, non-academic. So this could be, you've hit like a specific college GPA threshold, you've hit like a particular SAT score, like I think St. Mary's has something like that in place. So does Oregon State. Um, Generally, the more selective the college, the less likely you're going to get merit aid, which makes sense, right? Because merit aid effectively is a representation of how much that college is willing to kind of give a discount on the tuition to get you in. It's effectively them trying to maximize yield. Now, need-based awards, um, a lot of them can be grants, and a lot of them can be programs or loans. So if you take a look at um, like a Stanford as an example, and I don't want to stress people out with Stanford, but Stanford, they'll give a lot of institutional grants that are need-based, but they won't give any like scholarships that are merit-based. Um, Generally, public institutions like the UC system are more likely to provide aid via loan than grants. I think that might just be because, they are part of like part of their state's system. And so they are subsidized by the state. Um, so that's the other thing to keep in mind. So like for UCs, if you were to get a loan or if you were to get some sort of financial aid package, which I don't think many of our clients will get, it's mostly going to be in the form of some sort of a loan. Okay. So moving forward, actually, this is actually from our data. And this kind of corroborates what I just mentioned earlier. So the selectivity of the institution, so it goes down, right? You got public and private. The merit aid for private is lower, or sorry, the merit aid actually is a lot higher than it is for publics. Now, here, I think this might be um, that when you're like at this level of selectivity, your merit aid actually goes way down. It actually goes, farther down than the publics. But I think once you get to like, competitive and then like less competitive, it just skyrockets. So this is something to kind of keep in mind as we talk later about some of these myths with respect to going to private institutions. Okay, that's actually the first myth. So um, the myth that we get often is, hey, private colleges are out of our budget, and oftentimes they are. But I just want to quickly kind of share some data. So here is the UC Berkeley's cost of attendance. I think this actually isn't totally accurate because I think the tuition is closer to 18,000. So all in all, I'd say it's about like $50,000. Okay. That's UC Berkeley. That's tuition, room and board, other expenses. So now we took a look at our data and check this out. So these are private colleges. Um, Actually, some of them are private, some of them aren't. So, and I want you to take a look at the net cost. So what we have is we have the average package and we've got the net cost after that package. So Lewis and Clark, 56K versus 50K from UC Berkeley. RPI, fantastic engineering school, 53 grand. Hofstra, 52. Loyola Maryland, 52. So the what I really want to drive home here is that it's not just like the in-state publics, where you'll get that kind of a cost like a cost bucket. if you were to look at some of the less selective private colleges, like outside of California, you actually might get something similar. The other thing I want to note too is, as I'm losing my voice, give me 1 second. Other thing I want to mention is, so there's a budget consideration, and then there's also other considerations with respect to like college fit. So we have like the budget consideration. The other aspects could be things like, hey, I don't want to go to school in California. Or perhaps like the more interesting or relevant one here would be, I don't want to go to a large school. So here we can actually say, okay, so we could potentially give you some options that from like a net price standpoint are comparable to a UC system, but from like a fit perspective would actually get you something that's more closely aligned to what you're looking for. So that way you're not stuck having to go to like a large UC just because it fits within your budget. Okay. So that's like the point that I really want to make is we can be creative that in a way that meets budget, but then also social and environmental needs of that student. The second is we can't afford out of state. So this actually should be in your Notion. So if you go to Notion, and I'll send this deck as a follow-up, but you should be able to access this. And just to confirm, you can see this, right? You can see Western Undergraduate Exchange overview.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. So this kind of goes through like the WUI program, and I can kind of give you like the high level. It's effectively like a regional tuition savings program, right? And it's administrated or it's administered by like Weish, I think. And effectively what it is, it's about 160 colleges that are in like the 16 westernmost states, and they have an agreement that says WUI students will pay no more than 1.5x the in-state tuition. So this actually would be significant, call it, savings compared to standard out-of-state tuition rates. So now this is a really popular option. And if we just take a look at some of the I'll actually provide you the list of colleges that are part of WUI, but some of the most popular ones, Nevada, Reno, Utah, Hawaii, Manoa, Boise, Oregon State rather. Now the thing I just want to also highlight is the discounts will vary based on the university, also by major. So let me quickly show you this. University of Arizona, WUI. So Arizona has specific programs. So they say, WUI, we only offer two eligible programs if they go to this college or if they go to this college. Any other college, it's so like if you go into business, it doesn't qualify. So that is our job, right? Is to make sure that we help kind of give you a list of programs that are part of WUI and then also a list of majors that are part of WUI. So that's like one caveat. The other caveat is they may be subject to GPAs. So let me just take a look at Oregon State. And you can see they actually consider it a scholarship, right? And they say they're competitive to not automatically award it. And so what they do is they actually take a look at a holistic review of their application. So in some ways, some of them actually view it as like a scholarship, which is the last point. It'll most likely count against merit aid. So it's something to consider, but I wouldn't say WUI as a blanket option would be like the solve. But again, that is our objective and that is our responsibility. So thank you. All right. So that's WUI. The other thing too is even still like not many or many non-WUI programs are still very generous. And here's why. When we think about where a lot of our students want to go, a lot of it's because of where other students have been, or it's because of where their siblings have gone, right? Now, um, what a lot of out-of-state programs like is they actually like to attract California students. Why? Because out-of-state um, students pay more. And so what they'll often do is they'll actually try to like attract like a few students, give them full rides with the intent of them almost like planting a flag with that high school. So that way the next year students say, "Oh yeah, like didn't so and so go to Bama? I heard they got a full ride. We should totally apply there." Right? And so that's the objective. So um so some of these colleges or like a lot of the colleges that are outside of California that may not be as competitive like Bama, Florida, FSU, you know, um, in an effort to attract more students from California, they may be more susceptible, more likely rather, to give away like full rides. Obviously, like the full rides are very much like based on GPA and academic performance and maybe like another factor, but I share this to kind of highlight that if someone says, "Hey, we're looking at, Cal Publics because of budget," we've now identified like three other ways that we can kind of like find um, college opportunities that fit within that particular budget that also then provide flexibility based on the student's wants and needs. First one again is looking at net price and looking at merit. Looking at merit, I think we have a lot more options when it comes to, liberal arts and out-of-state public programs. There's WUI, and there's also out-of-state publics or non-publics actually too that are willing to give full rides with the intent of attracting more students from California in subsequent classes. Cool. Okay. So this is an exercise. Now this I think might take a few minutes. Um, but a net price calculator exercise. So effectively what this does is this will give you an estimate as to how much you should expect to pay in college or for college. So this is linked in Notion. Um, I won't kind of have us read through all of that right now, but if everyone can just so let me just kind of walk through what this is. So this is a quick way for you to kind of calculate how much aid you're going to get, if at all. So you fill this out. So my student's independent, campus, Berkeley, on campus, California resident, marital status. I'm just putting numbers in, by the way. So family size 5, parents' income earned by both 250, zero other income, taxes paid 80, parents' assets 750, 0, 0, 0, 0. Just like some round numbers, calculate. So what you'll get actually is you'll get this. So estimated student aid index is how much um, the college would expect you to pay. Like what is your upper limit? And then the total cost of attendance is 46.5, right? And so what that effectively means is it says, well, hey, you could afford to pay this much. This is the cost. So you're actually not going to get anything from us. Okay. So this I would actually kind of give everyone like maybe a few minutes. So I'm going to just send everyone like these links. Um, so that's Berkeley. Here's ASU. Florida. Chapman. I think if I were to just prioritize anyone's, I would just prioritize Chapman. Here's why. Um, I think likelihood of getting sort of any aid from Berkeley would be quite low, but I could be wrong, right? Um, Arizona is going to be part of WUI, so I think the likelihood there might be a little bit low too. So I think like really if you want to see like on the higher end, like what your expected cost would be, like I would do Chapman. It's almost like it's like the transitor property. Like if you don't get any aid from Chapman, then you're not going to get any from like the other ones. Does that make sense? So just take a look at like I would do maybe like the last link first. Um, and then once you're done that, just message me or just like send a chat and then we can kind of keep moving forward. So here's actually something interesting that I just did. So I put in like the exact same yeah. So I put in like the exact same calculations in the UC system as I did for Chapman. And look at this. So UC said my student aid index would be 78,000. Chapman said it's about the same. So 87,000 cost of attendance minus, 7.5 or 7,000 of grants and scholarships, I get to 80. So, um, so yeah, so I think kind of doing it for a UC than a private will kind of give you like the ends of the spectrum. The thing to note actually is like it's not going to be entirely, it's just going to be a proxy, right? And this doesn't account for, um, this won't account for scholarships that you can apply to afterwards. But the reason why this is helpful is that it will kind of give us a better idea as to how much we should budget for. Cool. And this also doesn't account for like merit either, because you could see merit A to 0, right? So if we went back to that slide that I showed earlier, this slide. So this is like additional merit aid. So I think if I go to Chapman, so Chapman actually, their average package is 20,000. So if we were to kind of go back to here, sorry if I'm jumping around a lot. So 87,000, right? Minus the 20,000 that I had, that gets to 67,000. So the numbers actually tie. Sorry, that's a banker term. Last thing, so scholarships. So nothing to worry about right now. This is something that we'll actually kind of like address when students have submitted their applications or getting ready to submit. So I think the thing that's helpful though is they can be provided by specific departments in their college. I'll show you how. Chambers of commerce are huge. So like uh, the Danville Chamber of Commerce, they have like a $5,000 scholarship. Um, I think Concord does too. You've got corporate sponsorships, right? Then you have national designations. Like I think everyone here is aware of like national merit, right? So if you're a finalist, you get, I think it's a few thousand. There are resources like colleges AI. Here's what I meant when I said specific departments. So this is actually, so if you literally just Google Berkeley scholarships, like this is how I got here. So UC Berkeley scholarships. And then here it is. So they have like a, so hold on. So they have like different scholarships here. And then one second, where'd I go? Yeah, so you could actually see like that there's some level of navigation we've got to do at the college level to actually find these scholarships. So I think was it this one? Like I don't even know how I got there now. How did I get here? So I just went like I typed in scholarships Berkeley and like this is how I got here. So like so here, if you click on each one of these are like the various scholarships. You could also even filter it by the year. So first year, second year. So this kind of goes to like the point that I have, which is yeah, so like with college resources or like college websites, it actually does take a bit of time to like navigate them because what'll happen sometimes is the scholarships are embedded within a particular department or they're embedded like in some other part of like the site map of the college. So they don't do a particularly good job at making them like readily accessible for public awareness. And I don't think that's on purpose. Um, But the reason why I share this is like even once your student's enrolled, like this is I don't want to say free money, but given how difficult it was even for me to like get back to that site, there's a good chance that a lot of these scholarships, like they're not as competitive as they otherwise could be. So that's the other thing I would kind of highlight when it comes to college scholarships. Lastly, everyone here has access to this. So we built a scholarship database. Um, so this has been updated. This is about 50 different scholarships, actually more than 50. And then we also have a lot more too, um, on like even more scholarships. So not something to worry about right now. It is something that we would probably want to take a look at around application season. So, when your student is a senior that fall time, it should be on your consultant's radar. And just feel free to ping them like, hey, where do scholarships fit in? We're actually actively working with a couple of students on doing just this. Like one student got into America and they're like, we got a lot less money than we thought. Are there scholarships? Yeah. So are there scholarships? We said, yeah. So we actually helped her find some scholarships and now she's applying. So definitely leverage that resource. And then just to kind of like summarize everything. So one, start the discussions about budget early. Um, the listed price is not often the final price. There's that quote that says, uh, today's price is not yesterday's price. In some ways, it's kind of similar here, right? In that what you see the sticker price actually may not be the price that you actually pay. And then the thing I actually also want to add too is you can negotiate as long as it's not like an active negotiation. Um, so if your student gets into two colleges that are very competitive, so like we had this happen with a WashU St. Louis and then a Northwestern. A student got into both of them. WashU St. Louis gave the student more money. He wanted to go to Northwestern. Took the WashU St. Louis offer and headed Northwestern. Said, "I got this offer from WashU St. Louis." Didn't even say like, "Hey, can you beat this?" Northwestern came back and said, "Okay, we can match it. Great, done." Right? Now, if you do that with an Ivy, they're going to say, "Go pound sand." Right? Um, but it is something worthwhile to like at least try. Again, nothing to do right now. And then lastly, take advantage of scholarships pre and post enrollment. So, I think those are the major takeaways. Um, I did not want to provide any sort of like financial advice, like this is how you save for this or this or this. If you do have questions regarding that, do check out the other video that we posted with Beacon College Funding Solutions on just that. But